When you think Ultraman, the last thing you probably think of is the American insurance company State Farm. And yet in 2014, these two brands came together for a surprisingly fun ad campaign. Hey, it's Joe from Ultraman Joseph, and today we're going to explore that time when Ultraman Neos joined hands with State Farm to try to sell insurance to Chinese-speaking people in North America. And yes, it is as bizarre as it sounds. The ad campaign consisted of two 30-second ads that ran in selected areas in the US and Canada. The first of which dropped in March of 2014, and the second of which dropped in July of 2014. And both ads were in Chinese. In the first commercial, a mother and child are dealing with the aftermath of having crashed their car into a street pole. Ultraman Neos flies in and fixes the pole, but when the mom stresses over insurance paperwork, Neos realizes that he is out of his depth. He flies off and returns holding a State Farm agent, Derek, who was seemingly in the middle of lunch. The agent handles the claim, and the spot ends with Neos and the agent doing a joint Spacium beam pose. The second commercial focuses on a father who is terrified by his newly licensed, easily distracted teen daughter. After a close call at a crosswalk, Neos steps in, scoops up the entire car, and flies them straight to a State Farm office, and meets State Farm agent Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan.
Agent Jonathan explains State Farm's youth auto protections, and ends the commercial with a pose where Jonathan has to stop the daughter from trying to touch Neos' color timer. The ads themselves are fun and playful, but they do leave behind some questions, like why are the ads in Chinese? Why is Ultraman Neos in this? And how did this crossover happen in the first place? Now, a lot of this comes down to demographic targeting and timing. In the early 2010s, Asian Americans were the fastest growing demographic in the US, with high medium incomes and high rates of multi-vehicle households. A lot of insurance companies were trying to really target this demographic at the time, including State Farm, and State Farm were sort of working with a little bit of an advantage here. Even prior to the 2010s, State Farm seems to have been trying to appeal to the Asian American demographic, recruiting Chinese-speaking insurance agents to open local agencies in areas with high Chinese-speaking populations, also hiring Chinese-speaking phone support people, but having some bilingual support doesn't in of itself make you stand out. So State Farm worked with Intertrend Communications, a multicultural marketing agency. Intertrend Communications wanted a concept that could resonate across generations and demonstrate that State Farm understood the culture. They also wanted to play into State Farm's pre-existing marketing theme, which was that State Farm is there in your time of need, a hero of sorts. This led their creative team to pitch a marketing campaign that relied on a hero that multiple generations of Asian Americans and specifically Chinese-speaking Americans would recognize: Ultraman. In mainland China and Hong Kong, the Showa-era Ultra Brothers are pop culture icons. On top of that, Ultraman Tiga exploded in popularity across China in the late 90s and early 2000s. Realizing this at some level, Intertrend Communications decided to bet on the idea that, hey, having Ultraman around would be an easily recognizable thing for Chinese immigrants and Chinese Americans, even if they are, say, casual viewers. Having realized the potential of collaborating with Ultraman, the creative team at Intertrend Communications made concepts for the ads, for the commercials, and the campaign itself, and they pitched it to State Farm, who in turn approved it. From there, they approached Tsuburaya Productions, the studio behind Ultraman, and Tsuburaya Productions signed on to the project as well. Why? Because it's 2014 and Tsuburaya Production needs money. For those familiar with the new generation Ultraman shows, a lot of this happens after the airing of Ultraman Ginga and before Ultraman Ginga S. And if anyone's familiar with the kind of budget that went behind those shows, it's very much rough days for Tsuburaya Productions here. The studio was still recovering from financial troubles that had forced the Tsuburaya family to sell their ownership stakes years prior, and opportunities to monetize on existing IPs was kind of one of the very few things that Tsuburaya Productions really had at the time to really make up for revenue here. And since an established American brand, State Farm, was footing the bill for this campaign, this was a pretty easy yes for Tsuburaya Productions. As a part of this collaboration, Tsuburaya Productions sent over the Ultraman Neo suit, as well as a team made up of suit actor, handler, and action coordinator Hiroyuki Okano. Toku fans might recognize Okano for his prior work as a suit actor. He portrayed various characters in the Ultraman franchise, as well as Gridman in the Tsuburaya show Gridman the Hyper Agent. Since transitioning away from suit acting in 2001, Hiroyuki Okano has mainly been working as an action coordinator, although he has come back a few times since 2001 to do a little bit of suit acting here and there. Along with that, Intertrend Communications also flew out director Jeff Chang from Taiwan. At the time, he had just directed the 2013 Taiwanese film Machi Action, an action comedy that parodies tokusatsu culture. Chang also had lots of experience with directing comedic commercials and was an Ultraman fan according to interviews that he had done prior. Chang's background made him a perfect fit for this particular project, especially because they wanted to make sure that the ad appealed to both those who knew of Ultraman and those who might not. The commercials themselves were shot in Los Angeles within one production window, featuring Asian actors, and I think I could be wrong about this, but featuring 2 State Farm agents who actually are real-life State Farm insurance agents, Derek Sue and Jonathan Yu. State Farm has been known for featuring real people who actually worked for them in their advertising in the past. For those familiar with State Farm, that's where the Jake from State Farm character originally came from. And if you're asking why use Ultraman Neos for this project, it's not 100% clear, but we can make a guess. And if you're in the camp of, I don't know who this Ultraman is, that's also very fair. He is not a very well-known Ultraman. Neos was originally created in 1995 as a more modernized version of the original Ultraman. The Ultraman was used to pitch a new TV show, TBS, in 1995, but it never got approved. Despite not getting his own show though, Ultraman Neos does spend the latter half of the 90s being kind of present in the franchise with live stage shows, a few obscure fun Ultraman media appearances, as well as a short direct-to-video Ultraman show called Ultraman Neos that released in the early 2000s. All of which is to say that you kind of really have to be into the Ultraman franchise to actually know this guy. Which kind of gets back to why him? Why use him in a State Farm ad that is aimed towards Chinese-speaking audiences who are familiar with the OG Ultramans and Ultraman Tiga? Why not use one of those? And the educated guess here is that it probably has to do with the Chayo legal dispute. And if you just heard Chayo and sighed, yes, it's that mess again. For those unaware, here's the quick TLDR. In 1996, a Thai company named Chayo claimed they owned the international rights to the first 6 classic Showa Ultra Brothers. This effectively led Tsuruya Productions to have to fight a very messy legal battle in multiple different countries with Chayo, only achieving a kind of complete victory against them in 2026. Despite their victory and having regained their rightful ownership of the original 6 Ultra Brothers here, Tsuruya Productions really were limited in how far they could distribute Ultraman internationally because of this lawsuit. With 2014 being around a time period where Tsuruya Production is nowhere near a victory that will make them feel comfortable enough to distribute any of the original 6 Showa Ultra Brothers, they really couldn't bring original Ultraman into an ad collab with State Farm even if they really wanted to. So the educated guess here, and it's an educated guess because no one at Tsuruya is going to be like, oh, we couldn't use original Ultraman because of that Chayo fella, we had to use Ultraman Neos instead. There's none of that. But the educated guess is Ultraman Neos was effectively a stand-in for the original Ultraman here when they brought him over to the Ultraman State Farm collab. Which makes sense, after all, Ultraman Neos was meant to be a more modernized version of the original Ultraman, and he does have a kind of similar style going for him as well as similar color scheme. So basically, not the Showa Ultraman, meaning you're steering clear of Chayo here, but being recognizable enough that if you were to bring it up to an audience who are familiar with the original 6 Ultra Brothers, they would immediately go Ultraman. Similar to how Tsuruya Productions will never actually comment and say, oh, we used Ultraman Neos here because we couldn't use the original Ultraman because of Chayo, Intertrend Communications also spun the decision to use Ultraman Neos in their ads with their own little bit of marketing, saying in an interview, Neos is an extremely important and popular member of the Ultraman family. His spirit of being on standby at all times to protect the Earth coincides perfectly with the professional attitudes of State Farm agents being ready to serve clients at any moment. Which sounds nice, except, you know, being on standby to protect Earth is pretty much something that can be applied to a lot of these Ultraman, including the original Ultraman, so I don't know. Basically, PR talk, right? That quote, by the way, was taken from an interview that they did with Wakao LA. It's a SoCal Asian American media outlet. Anyway, as Intertrend Communications had hoped, the Ultraman featuring State Farm commercials ended up being pretty impactful. And it makes sense when you think about it. If you were watching Cantonese or Mandarin programming on stations in 2014 in North America, the ads were kind of unimpressive. The ads that would air during Mandarin or Cantonese programming would very much be the variety of slideshow ads with voiceovers and generic music from local businesses, ads that were trying to sell supplements and herbal medicine, ginseng. I don't know why I did that. Ginseng gets me excited, I guess. And a few corporate ads that got dubbed over in Mandarin or Cantonese. Like, nothing impressive, nothing exciting. Now imagine you're used to seeing these mediocre ads while watching Mandarin or Cantonese programming, and you've just kind of got on board with it, when suddenly you get this high quality ad with Chinese speaking actors in it and Ultraman popping up out of nowhere. You're gonna be left going, wait a minute, what is happening here, right? Especially with the kind of absurd comedy that's going on. Ultraman Neo's dealing with situations where he's sort of fed up, so he has to go and get the State Farm guys. So the commercial certainly left a lasting impression on the viewer demographic who watch Mandarin or Cantonese programming. I'm sure there are people to this day who will randomly remember this and go, wait a minute, that was a pretty weird ad with Ultraman suddenly appearing out of nowhere, like it was an impressionable lad. Whether that impression was enough to make this marketing campaign a success, who knows? Only State Farm does, and they don't really release numbers on this type of thing, right? What we do know is what went into this ad. They went to Tsuburaya Productions and licensed Ultraman Neos from him and flew out a team of people who are usually involved with other Ultraman projects to help film the ad. They flew in an experienced director and a Toku fan from Taiwan, coordinated with one another through the language barrier, through a combination of English, Chinese, and Japanese, and translators who I probably deserve more recognition here than I've been able to give them in this video. All to make an Ultraman-themed commercial set in Los Angeles to win over the Chinese-speaking market. And all that makes the State Farm Ultraman collab ad campaign pretty darn interesting, if you ask me. But that is all I have for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments down below about what you think of the ad. Also, let me know if I got something wrong about this one. This one involved me researching a lot of Chinese articles, which I took Chinese in high school. It has not developed to a degree where it's usable. So this has been a struggle to make. So, and I might have gotten something wrong. And if I have, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. And, subscribe to the channel for more Ultraman related content like this, and make sure to give this video an ultra like.